Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. I am exploring Petersburg National Battlefield and have stopped to pay my respect to the first Maine Heavies. It's one of the best known stories here at Petersburg, their ill-fated forlorn hope charge on June 18th, 1864. But the Heavies have a particular place in my heart for two reasons. One, they come from around Bangor, Maine, which is a place where I have roots, and they also had their baptism of fire at Harris Farm at Spotsylvania on the 19th of May, 1864. They'd spent the early part of the war, recruited first as the 18th Maine. They spent the early part of the war on garrison duty around Washington, D.C. They have just over 1,000 men and officers, and they are trained to serve as their own infantry support as artillerists. So that's where this idea of heavy artillery comes from. They've got these heavy siege guns that they've got in the fortifications around Washington, but they also serve as an infantry capacity. So when Grant starts stripping the Heavies away from the Washington defenses to join the Army of the Potomac as the Overland Campaign unfolds, these guys are basically converted into straight up infantry, even though they hold that heavy artillery designation. By that point, they've had about 800 additional recruits added to their ranks. So this is a giant regiment, 1,800 guys marching down the road to Spotsylvania Courthouse. They get embroiled in that battle at Harris Farm, and they lose a staggering 481 casualties as they just stand out in the open and slug it out, because that's what they've been trained to do through all of the drilling that they've done. And they're against Lee's wily veterans in the Second Corps there. And men talk about it being one of the bravest things they'd ever seen, is these Mainers just stand there along with several other heavy artillery units and just try to slug it out. So after those staggering losses, they continue on with the Overland Campaign. Things are relatively quiet for them until June 18th, and they are ordered to charge the Confederate position. By this point, the Confederates have now fallen back to their third line. They started at the Dimmock line, they fall back to a position along Harrison Creek, and from there, with continued federal pressure, Beauregard pulls back to a position that's behind the camera right now in front of me. Colquitt's Salient is up in that direction right now, so it's a modern landmark that folks can use as they're orienting themselves, because this is a confusing spot. I'm going to swing the camera around just a little bit and kind of see kind of this open pine tree. Colquitt Salient's off in that direction. Off in that direction is Fort Stedman, and most of the interpretation here focuses on that story, which is March 1865. So much longer after this ill-fated charge by the Mainers. So as they advance, they're told to push forward against that new Confederate position, and being the green troops that they are, they go forward, but their support does not. Their support has been chewed up pretty significantly over the course of this campaign. They know that this is just another meat grinder that they're being sent into, especially because of the uphill slope and sort of this meat grinder of a funnel that they're sent into. The Mainers go forward, and being out there all by themselves, in about 10 minutes, they take staggering casualties, losing almost 67% of the about 900 men that they have at this point in the war. And as a result of those casualties, they will be the unit that holds the unfortunate designation of the regiment that loses the most men in any single action during the entire Civil War. Aside from combat losses, they're going to have about 425 men killed during the war. The first Maine Heavies are going to lose about 260 guys to disease, so they just lose an incredible number of men over the course of the war. And as a sad postscript to this story, the colonel of the regiment, Colonel Daniel Chaplin, survives the assault, but he's so depressed that he had to lead his men into slaughter that his condition tends to deteriorate, and by August of 1864, right after the Battle of Deep Bottom, he is killed by a sharpshooter while he's inspecting the picket lines, although some people suggest that it was actually suicide by sniper. My colleague Brian Swartz has a great post about that at Emerging Civil War, if you'd like to know more. In 1894, survivors from the regiment come back here and they erect this monument. The Survivors Association paid for half of it. The state of Maine paid for the other half. The monument includes the state seal, which includes the state motto, Dirigo, which means I lead. In this instance, They're the ones who are leading the way on this attack, following orders that were given to them that no one else followed. And so, because of that ironic twist, these men suffer the greatest single loss of any regiment in a single action during the Civil War. It sits down here at the bottom of this vale. A little sidewalk brings you down here, but it's a pretty isolated spot, often forgot about, particularly in the context of that larger Fort Stedman story. But these are guys I've spent a lot of time reading about and studying and reading first-person accounts from. So they've certainly established a place in my own Civil War heart and the story that they have to tell. I'm Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War. We'll see you online and on the battlefield.